The camera's red light blinked on. A smooth jazz loop faded into silence as the evening broadcast of America Speaks began. Host Tamara Keys barely got her opening words out before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leaned forward, eyes narrowed, fingers steepled. "You know what your problem is, Vivek," she said, her voice cutting through the studio. "You're not here to fix anything. You're just another puppet of the rich, dressing up Silicon Valley's greed as patriotism." The room fell silent, so silent, the rustle of Vivek's cufflink against the table was audible. A few audience members shifted forward, sensing what was about to unfold. Vivek Ramaswamy chuckled. Slowly. A dangerous kind of laugh. Then he leaned back, resting one elbow on the desk. "And you," he fired back, "are the poster child for hypocrisy. Preaching socialism from your iPhone while sipping oat milk lattes in a DC apartment paid for by donors you pretend to hate." Gasps filled the air. One intern in the back mouthed, "Oh my God." Tamara raised a hand, trying to mediate, but AOC wasn't finished. She stood up, slamming a printed report onto the desk. "This," she snapped, "is your real agenda. Corporate subsidies dressed as innovation. Tax shelters disguised as empowerment initiatives. You've been peddling lies to working-class families while investing in the very companies outsourcing their jobs." Vivek's smile disappeared. He scanned the report without touching it. "You don't scare me with your little papers," he said, his tone icy. "I've built companies, created jobs. What have you done besides trend on Twitter and block half of Congress?" AOC leaned forward again, fists clenched. "What I've done is fight for people you've never met. Janitors. Teachers. Veterans drowning in medical debt while you fly private and talk about bootstrap economics." The audience broke into applause and boos, split right down the middle. Backstage, producers gestured wildly. One whispered, "This is gold." The camera zoomed in on both of them, now nearly nose to nose across the sleek glass table. And then Tamara, caught between two human infernos, gave up pretending to control the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into her earpiece, "we've got a live one." Vivek adjusted his lapel mic, his eyes locked on AOC. He wasn't just defending himself anymore, he was on offense. "You speak like you're some kind of revolutionary," he sneered. "But let's get real. You're a brand, not a movement. You're more interested in trending hashtags than policy results." AOC tilted her head, eyes burning. "And you're more interested in hedge fund approval than democracy. Every word you say is pre-packaged for your next speaking tour or a donor dinner in the Hamptons." The audience reacted with a mix of laughter and outrage. Phones lit up. The debate was now trending on X under two hashtags, #Vivek vs AOC and #RichPuppetLive. Tamara, clearly losing control, glanced at the teleprompter and whispered to her producer, "We're off script. Let it ride." AOC leaned forward again. "Do you even remember what it's like to not be rich, Vivek? Do you remember what it feels like to choose between rent and insulin?" Vivek slammed a fist softly on the desk, not out of rage, but precision. "I wasn't born with a trust fund, Congresswoman. I made my money. I didn't wait for government handouts or cry on podcasts about injustice. I built something. That's what real Americans do." The audience was now visibly divided. Cheers erupted from one side, jeers from the other. Someone yelled, "Talk about the schools." Another shouted, "Cut her mic." A woman in the front row started crying, no one knew why. But AOC didn't flinch. She reached under the desk, pulled out a red folder labeled, "Subsidy Records 2022, and slid it across to Vivek. "You want to talk about building something," she said. "Let's start with the $43 million your biotech startup received while your company laid off 120 workers the same quarter." A hush swept through the studio. Vivek stared at the folder as if it might explode. "You did your homework," he admitted, voice now calm but sharp as a blade. But there's a difference between playing the game and changing the rules. I'm trying to rewrite the rules. You're just trying to rewrite your image. Tamara, stunned, slowly leaned into the mic. We need to take a break. But neither of them moved. And the audience? They didn't blink. As the cameras rolled uninterrupted, a wave of tension washed over the studio like a coming storm. No one dared blink. Even the sound engineers paused, headphones halfway off their heads. Vivek picked up the red folder AOC had slid across the table. With practiced calm, he opened it, page after page of itemized tax incentives, federal contracts, and employment cuts. He looked up, smiling coldly. You really think this exposes me? He asked. It exposes the system you defend. A system that punishes risk and rewards victimhood. If I played it well, maybe that says more about the rules than the player. AOC leaned in. No. It says everything about the player who helped write those rules, then pretends to rebel against them. Vivek's expression faltered, just for a second. Tamara, sensing an inflection point, tried to interject. Let's pivot. No, AOC snapped, never looking away from Vivek. Let's not pivot. Let's peel this open for every viewer who's ever had to choose between groceries and gas. While you were giving TED Talks on self-reliance, your companies were feeding at the federal trough. Vivek's fingers curled tightly around the folder, but he refused to blink. And while you gave speeches about socialism, your team was securing investment properties under shell companies in up-and-coming districts. Don't play martyr, Congresswoman. Gasps echoed. Phones in the audience lit up again. Live chat feeds scrolled so fast producers couldn't keep up. Hashtag they both knew began trending. You want transparency? Vivek continued. Let's both sign a release. Right here. Full financial disclosure. Mine, yours, your campaign staff, my board. Tonight. Let the American people see who's really serving them. Tamara's voice cracked. Are you both agreeing to that on record? But neither answered her. Their eyes locked like chess masters in the final minutes. AOC finally broke the silence. You want my signature? She reached for the pen. You'll get it. But don't mistake this for surrender. It's a challenge. The pen struck paper. The studio went silent. In that moment, it wasn't just a political showdown. It was war. The broadcast cut to a wide shot. The studio now resembled a war room more than a political debate set. The folder lay open between AOC and Vivek like a detonated device. Pages had spilled onto the table, some fluttering to the floor. Tamara leaned back, stunned into silence, her microphone forgotten. You just signed your own exposure, Vivek said sharply. Don't think I won't follow through. AOC adjusted her blazer and replied without missing a beat. Then do it. You fire first. Let's see how long your allies stand once the public knows what they've been bankrolling. Suddenly, a producer's voice cracked through the control room. We're getting real-time responses. The White House just issued a no comment. Wall Street's watching. This thing's gone global. And it had. Clips from the exchange exploded across every platform. TikTok, X, YouTube, each moment clipped, captioned, dissected. Hashtag expose them all began trending with millions of mentions. Anonymous insiders began leaking. Someone uploaded a spreadsheet of defense contracts tied to Vivek's firm. Someone else tagged a Shell LLC linked to a New York real estate deal, connected to AOC's campaign office. Vivek grinned. Oh look, your team's dirt is already bubbling up. But AOC didn't flinch. She turned to camera 2, the close-up feed, and delivered what would become the soundbite of the year. If fighting for transparency makes me a target, so be it. I'd rather be hunted for the truth than celebrated for silence. The control room froze. One technician whispered, that line just made history. Back in the studio, Vivek's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his smirk wavered. "What?" AOC asked, seeing the shift. He looked up, the smile gone. "That wasn't a fan. That was the board." She leaned in. "Then tell them I'm just getting started." The next morning, Capitol Hill wasn't its usual self. Senators whispered in elevators. Congressional aides scrolled through clip after clip. The debate wasn't just being watched, it was being weaponized. On CNN, a Chirin read. AOC versus Vivek, the debate that rattled the establishment. In the studio, where it had all gone down, chairs still sat slightly askew. A forgotten coffee cup remained under Vivek's seat. But the reverberations were anything but forgotten. One congresswoman, off record, told The Hill. "It's like watching the two futures of America scream at each other in real time." At the heart of the storm was that quote, "I'd rather be hunted for the truth than celebrated for silence." It appeared on banners at protests in D.C., was spray-painted on walls in Brooklyn, and by noon, it had already been printed on T-shirts sold on Etsy. But Vivek wasn't fading. Instead, he doubled down, holding an impromptu press conference on the Capitol steps. "You want war?" he said. "Let's talk about the cozy relationship between climate lobbyists and federal contracts. Let's talk about who profits when regulations are woke. Let's talk about who really pays the price, you." The crowd roared, half cheering, half booing. One reporter shouted. "Is this a declaration of political war?" Vivek's reply. "This is me kicking the door open. If Ocasio-Cortez wants fire, I'm bringing the matchbook." Meanwhile, AOC was spotted heading into a closed-door caucus meeting. Cameras caught her, calm, collected. When asked if she regretted the broadcast, she answered plainly. "No. For once, we're not pretending." By evening, the networks were airing instant reactions from retired officials, tech moguls, former military leaders. Everyone had an opinion, and no one could look away. The nation wasn't just watching anymore. It had picked sides. 3 nights later, as storm clouds hung low over Washington, something unexpected happened. A clip, grainy, handheld, clearly taken in secret, began to circulate online. It showed Vivek, standing in a candlelit room, speaking to a small group of donors in what appeared to be an off-the-record strategy session. His voice was quiet but firm. "She's a threat. Not just politically. Ideologically. Emotionally. She represents chaos wrapped in righteousness. That's dangerous." Someone asked, "So what's the play?" Vivek leaned forward. "You don't debate the bomb. You disarm it. Publicly." The clip went viral in less than an hour. #DisarmHer began trending. By morning, AOC was on MSNBC. The anchor didn't waste time. "Congresswoman, did you see the leaked video of Mr. Ramaswamy?" AOC didn't blink. "He calls me chaos. I call him a salesman for oligarchs. If he thinks a backroom thread is going to rattle me, he better bring more than candles and billionaires." Outside the Capitol, protesters gathered with signs that read, "You can't disarm truth. Congress isn't for sale." Inside, the Ethics Committee launched a preliminary review. The question wasn't whether Vivek had broken a rule, but whether he had declared war on a sitting member of Congress. And behind closed doors, even Republicans began whispering. He might have gone too far. Meanwhile, Vivek posted on X. "I will not apologize for wanting clarity in chaos. I said what I said. The public deserves bold leadership, not progressive theater." The rift wasn't closing. It was ripping wider, live, in real time, in the heart of the American political stage. And for the first time in weeks, even AOC's closest allies asked, "Is this heading somewhere no one can control?" The next evening, AOC didn't go on air. She went to Harvard. Unannounced, she stepped into the Kennedy School of Government and requested the auditorium. Within minutes, over 300 students, professors, and reporters had filled the seats. Cameras were rolling. No teleprompter. No script. She took the mic and began. "This is not about me. It's about a man who thinks power comes from money. A man who sits in private rooms calling the rest of us chaos, because we won't bow. And here's my message to Vivek Ramaswamy: I don't need your respect. But I will not let you redefine leadership as something bought, rather than earned." She then pulled a printed copy of Vivek's leaked donor list from her folder. And she read aloud, name by name, the billionaires funding his campaign. Gasps filled the room. This isn't conspiracy. This is campaign finance reality. And I refuse to let a puppet call me dangerous, while he dances for the hands that feed him. The clip spread like wildfire. TikTok exploded. Instagram Reels stitched her words with dramatic music. Hashtags like #PuppetPolitics and #ReadTheNames dominated trending lists. Vivek's team rushed to respond. He tweeted. "Desperation is loud. Facts are quiet. Watch my record, not her theater." But this wasn't theater. This was a movement forming in real time. And in the capital, both parties felt it. Senior GOP strategists warned. If he doesn't shift tone now, he'll lose moderates, and look like he's attacking women of color for sport. Yet Vivek doubled down. He accepted a live CNN town hall for the following week. And when asked if AOC would attend to face him directly, her office replied in 3 words. "Clear my schedule." The CNN studio in New York buzzed with a rare kind of electricity. Not since the presidential debates had there been this much anticipation. The moderators didn't need to hype the crowd, the names did that on their own. AOC versus Vivek Ramaswamy. Live. Unscripted. Nationally televised. The format was simple, 90 minutes. No opening statements. Just questions, and rebuttals. AOC arrived in black. No jewelry, no dramatics, just intensity. Vivek wore a navy suit with a flag pin, smiling confidently as he took his seat. The first exchange was about wealth inequality. Moderator. "Mr. Ramaswamy, you've called income redistribution economic cancer. Do you stand by that?" Vivek. "Absolutely. The problem isn't inequality. It's stagnation. You don't raise the bottom by tearing down the top." AOC, leaning in without hesitation. "No one's tearing down the top. We're just done pretending billionaires are victims while single moms work 3 jobs to survive." Applause erupted. Vivek smiled tightly. "That sounds nice on a bumper sticker. But I live in the real world." AOC shot back. "The real world where hedge funds pay less in taxes than schoolteachers. That world? I don't want to live in that reality, I want to rebuild it." Then it happened. Moderator. "Mr. Ramaswamy, how do you respond to Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez calling you a puppet of the rich?" He turned to her directly. "You call me a puppet, but at least I don't read scripts written by Twitter trends. You're not dangerous because you're radical, you're dangerous because you believe your own theater." Gasps. Silence. AOC's reply was nuclear. "And you're not dangerous because you're rich, you're dangerous because you think money equals truth. That's not leadership. That's delusion." Even the moderator froze for a second. Twitter exploded in real time. #delusion versus reality. #not your puppet. And the cameras caught something unexpected. A flicker in Vivek's eyes, not rage, not arrogance, but for a split second, doubt. As the cameras cut to commercial, the studio didn't go quiet, it got louder. Producers whispered frantically into headsets. Twitter was trending in real time. #AOC vs Vivek. Hashtag puppet politics. Hashtag truth or theater. In the lobby of the CNN headquarters, a small crowd had gathered around the big screen, jaws dropped. Staffers stared at each other, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Back in the studio, AOC and Vivek both sat still, but their eyes said everything. She was on fire. He was recalculating. And outside? Chaos. News vans lined the blocks of Midtown Manhattan. Protesters and supporters of both figures began gathering outside, waving signs and chanting. Some held posters that read, "Puppet of the Elite. Sheep in Congress. Vivek 2028. AOC speaks for U.S." A political analyst on a rival network broke in with a special segment. This debate wasn't just policy, it was personal. AOC exposed fault lines in the new GOP messaging, while Vivek's controlled bravado started to show cracks under pressure. Backstage, a Democratic strategist whispered into her phone. She just shifted the national conversation. This clip will be played for the next decade. Meanwhile, a senior Ramaswamy aide was texting frantically. "We need immediate damage control. Book him on every major show in the next 24 hours. Then came the viral moment that no one expected. A TikTok clip of AOC walking off stage, muttering to her aide. That wasn't a debate. That was a reckoning. 50 million views in 3 hours. And still counting. By the next morning, every major newspaper had a photo from the debate. The New York Times, AOC strikes back, fire on the floor. The Wall Street Journal, Ramaswamy rattled in televised showdown. The Guardian, not just another debate, a political earthquake. Cable news ran the replay on loop. Podcasts exploded with takes. And most notably, the voters, young, independent, disillusioned, had found themselves glued to something they hadn't felt in years. Realness. Fire. Consequence. While Vivek held a damage control press conference outside Capitol Hill, insisting his words were taken out of context and that AOC weaponized emotion, the public wasn't buying it. Twitter polls showed 73% believed AOC had won the night decisively. On her part, AOC didn't gloat. Instead, she released a 2-minute video from her office, shot vertically with no edits. "What you watched last night wasn't theater. It was me saying what millions of Americans wish they could say to power, enough." Her tone was calm, but the message scorched. In less than 12 hours, the video had over 100 million views, making it the most watched political clip in TikTok's history. Meanwhile, GOP insiders were whispering about pulling Vivek back from certain media appearances. His donors were reviewing the optics. His team was on fire, but not in the way they hoped. And as the week unfolded, late-night hosts, commentators, and celebrities began weighing in. AOC didn't just win a debate, she set a new standard for what it means to call someone out in public. By Friday, billboards went up across Brooklyn with a single quote in bold. "You're not here for the people, you're here for the billionaires." The new political season had a queen. And she wasn't apologizing for the crown.